In news from Nigeria, President-elect Bola Tinubu has extended an olive branch to his political opponents, despite the opposition claiming electoral fraud. Delivering his victory speech, Tinubu urged his rivals to join hands and focus on serving the people. The Independent National Electoral Commission confirmed his victory after he secured over 8 million votes. Let's take a listen.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has declared the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Bola Tinubu, as the winner of the 2023 presidential elections. This comes 4 days after Nigerians went to the poll to cast their votes. Bola Tinubu is the 6th democratically elected president in Nigeria.
Tinubu Bola Ahmed of the APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected.
The announcement of this news came in the early hours of Wednesday. Thus, Nigerians woke up to the news. However, there is no excitement or jubilation, as is typical of post-election victories in the country.
Very bad, the situation of the country. I don't understand, because how can we, the youth, come out and vote and our vote didn't count? I'm very upset about it. I'm angry. I'm not happy.
A whole president win, you don't see joy. Everybody in a sorrow, like Nigeria, they more. This one election, not the election, no. We don't tire for all this rubbish. Nothing like an election. Everybody they cry, both young, old. They say this one na rubbish.
I'm not happy because it's the president that bring President Muhammadu Buhari in, which make us to suffer for 8 years without no good things happen. People are suffering. People are suffering.
If anybody said they are not expecting what is happening, nobody expects it, but we have to take it along.
INEC is compromised. APC have influenced INEC. And we can see results have been changed. We have records of where elections did not take place and results have been prepared.
So far, many opposing parties have rejected the results. The international observers have also condemned the conduct. And former President of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, has called for the cancellation of the results. It is yet to be seen how Nigerians are going to react to Tinubu's victory, and if the dissenting voices will take the matter to court or die the hatchet. I am Ihembe reporting for Newzroom Afrika, Abuja.
We speak now to University of Pretoria politics researcher with a focus on elections, Martin Ihembe, who also observed some polling units. Thank you very much, Martin, for your time. As you could hear from that report from our colleague, international observers are not quite happy with how things progressed, and some Nigerians saying that INEC is compromised. What did you see?
Good morning, Dudu. It's a pleasure to be on your show again. Yes, from what you can hear people saying on the street, it is not just Nigerians not being happy. The international community that monitored the election equally gave it a rating that is below standard. The election is not of international standard. There were cases of violence in areas where the opposition party felt the voting will not be in its favor. Then there were cases of manipulation. And from the disposition of the ruling party, it was obvious that the party was not popular. The party was not popular, and then winning the election under a free and fair atmosphere would be difficult for the party. So the party relied on manipulation of results and intimidation. That was very common in Lagos, although it's lost in Lagos. So to resolve this problem, which has been the trend in Nigeria in previous presidential election, the electoral management body brought technological innovations such that elections would be transmitted from the polling units in real time to the INEC portal through the BBAS technology. At a certain point in time, that was jettisoned and it was not used. And that was why, when the result was announced, even in the process at the collation center, if you had watched what happened at the collation center, members of the People Democratic Party, the agent at the collation center, stood up and protested, and other parties too protested. So the election was fraught with irregularities. There was no compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act. Going forward, the opposition party have approached the appeal court, and they've been granted leave to inspect the election materials. From there, we'll know what will happen.
Martin, do we know exactly how? Because electioneering is no cheap exercise. And so where does the money come from? We're talking about an oil-rich nation that is facing fuel shortages. A lot of things not making sense, but this managing to get it right in terms of these allegations of vote rigging.
So here's the thing, Dudu. Election is very expensive. Apart from war, another event that you mobilize as though you're going to war is election. In the context of Nigeria, you have to even stop movements. So the Ihembe, in every electoral cycle, the budget goes up. This electoral cycle, I think the electoral management body spent almost about 360-something billion to conduct this election. So we are where we are because political actors have not imbibed the culture of playing according to the rules. We wouldn't go there, we wouldn't have a rerun, we wouldn't have whatever that will create problem or costs or create logistical nightmare on the part of the electoral management body if it conducts itself very well. INEC was scored high coming into this election until what happened during the election happened. You know, we wouldn't have had the problems. And the reason why the APC is not popular with the citizens is because of the suffering in the country. Like you rightly mentioned, there were fuel queues in the country before the election. Naira crunch in the country before the election. This is in addition to insecurity crisis and inflation rate, which was very high, and the debt profile of the country was equally very high. So the ruling party was not popular. In a free and fair context, there is no way the ruling party would have won the election, because the election was meant to be a referendum on the party, and it knew that the outcome of that referendum would not be in favor of the party, and they resorted to rig in the way they did. So I'm not saying that in areas where the Labour Party or the PDP had control, there weren't issues of irregularity, but by far the APC, was guilty in the irregular practices in the election and fraud and violence as we have it. We saw it where I voted. It was difficult for you to experience that kind of same situation because I voted in the university campus and the APC lost landslide, So we have a crop of politicians that have been described by scholars as militicians. They approach electoral contest, which is a civil exercise, as though they are going into war. They are militants. And we could see this during the election. So which is the problem? We thought the 2023 presidential election is going to be an improvement on the 2015 presidential election, which is by far the best election in the Fourth Republic. But the 2023 presidential election is even, in my opinion, worse than the 2007 presidential election, which has been adjudged by local and international observers as the worst election in Nigeria's history.
These militicians you speak of are also old guards. Let's take a listen at what President-elect Bola Tinubu had to say at his victory speech, or during his.
That I am profoundly humbled that you have elected me to serve as the 16th president of our beloved country. This is a shining moment in the life of any man and affirmation of our democratic existence.
Martin, a lot is being said about not being ageist, right? And taking a look at the situation on the continent where you have some of the leaders being older and not representing the population on the ground. We are the youngest continent in terms of the youth population. This is a 70-year-old man, a lot of young people who came out to vote, as we saw during that package, bemoaning that fact that it would appear as though the voice of the youth is not being heard.
It's simple, Jojo. This election, there was the involvement of new registrants in this election, and they are mostly young people between ages 25 to 18. And these are people who have witnessed in the last 8 years, they've been in the country, and they've seen how governance has been conducted in the country. They are angry, and the only way to register their anger is to take it to the ballot box. They took it, but then they were frustrated. Tinubu, I'm not sure if events go as the result has been announced, will be able to govern this country in the next 4 years. Nigeria is a tough country. Tinubu can, age is not on his side. And the kind of people he has around him are not the kind of people that are interested in the interests of Nigeria as a nation. They are only interested, they are just like the band of the 40 thieves in the folktales we talk about, Alibaba and the 40 thieves. So Tinubu will end up being the ineffectual Alibaba surrounded by the 40 thieves who have access to national treasury. And this is what Nigerians wanted to, take out of the picture. They wanted to retire these politicians so that they can have young blood into the system in the person of Peter Obi. The mood was shifting towards Peter Obi because the other opposition, Atiku Abubakar, who was the former vice president of the country, has always been in the race. And Abubakar cannot be differentiated from Tinubu because you find some of the elements you find around Atiku Abubakar are the same people who were formerly members of the PDP, now in APC, some in APC, now in PDP, even though Peter Obi was in PDP. But the reason why Peter Obi left PDP was because he knew there wouldn't be a free and fair primaries in the party. And if it's not free and fair, there was no way he could match Atiku dollar to dollar to be able to secure the nomination from the party. And that was why he left. He went to Labour. So the attempt to retire this old guard and bring in new people, managers of the state, has been frustrated by these militias who have taken over. And it's simple. Let me take you back to 2015, Lulu. In 2015, when the votes were being counted at the National Coalition Center, it was obvious that Jonathan was not going to win the election. And what did Jonathan do? He picked up the phone and called his opponent, who is the current president today, to congratulate him even before the electoral management body announced the result. That was a conciliatory behavior that he exhibited because the election, to a very large extent, was free, fair, and credible. And the international community that monitored that election gave it a pass mark, both local observers and international observers. We can't say the same of this election. Peter Obi, right from when the counting was going, even when the election was ongoing, expressed reservations with the process of the conduct of the election. The same thing with Atiku. It's simple. If the election was a reflection of what Nigerians wanted without intimidation and manipulation, it takes nothing off any of these candidates to concede defeat because Nigerians have spoken. We can't say that Nigerians spoke in the last election. The militias spoke in the language they know how to speak. So let's see what will happen. And my anger with the election is this. After about 60-something years of nationhood, we've not been able to conduct elections that will reflect the wishes of Nigerians. This is about 20-something years to uninterrupted democratic rule. We should have been able to get it right. I would want to say that members of the National Electoral Commission in Nigeria at the top echelon may have wanted this election to go as planned, but their field officials were bought over by the politicians. And they jettisoned the use of the beavers, which would have improved integrity, which we lack in our electoral process. So the effort to retire this old guard has been frustrated by the manner in which the election was conducted. And it's really, really, really sad. We don't know what will happen going forward. And Tinubu cannot say that he enjoys the support of Nigerians, so even those who contested the race with him. You can't extend an olive branch to those, your opponents, in an electoral contest that was fraught with irregularities and fraud.
Thank you very much to Martin Ihembe. He's with the University of Pretoria's political research team, and he also observed some polling units in Nigeria.